Today, we're going to unpack a really harrowing first-person account from the dark web. You know, that hidden corner of the internet where the worst of humanity can, well, it can thrive. This is a story that starts with something so normal, a guy looking for a job online, and spirals into an absolute nightmare. It's a terrifying reminder of what can be hiding just a few clicks away.
Okay, so this warning, it comes directly from the original source. We didn't add it. The story we're about to get into it's incredibly unsettling. So please just take a moment and decide if you're ready to hear this. So our story kicks off with a situation that I think a lot of us can understand, right? A desperate search for work. And it's this vulnerability, this need for a job that becomes the doorway to a horror you just can't imagine.
I want you to picture the scene. It's California, just after the pandemic. The world is trying to get back to normal, but our narrator, he's been out of a job for a whole year. He's stressed, he's desperate, and honestly, he's ready to take almost any opportunity that comes his way. And that desperation, that's the key. That's what he says now about his friend Martin. See, Martin was just trying to be a good friend. He found a job offer and passed it along. A totally innocent suggestion that would end up leading him straight into hell. And the job itself sounded completely legit, you know? A bit lonely maybe, but legit, a fire lookout. So he sends his info over, and just 2 days later, boom, he gets a call for an interview. It seemed like everything was finally working out for him. Almost. Too perfectly. All right, let's talk about the interview. Looking back on it now, this is where all the red flags started popping up, even if you didn't see them at the time. The location alone should have been a massive warning sign. I mean, a remote 3-story building way out in an area with hardly anyone around. But he was so desperate for the job, he just kind of pushed that weird feeling down and walked inside. At first, the whole process felt normal. Security checked him in, he waited. The interviewers were wearing masks, but hey, that wasn't unusual back then. They offered him a glass of water. Just a simple glass of water. He says accepting it was the single biggest mistake of his entire life. Right as the interview was wrapping up, he tried to ask one last question, but the words wouldn't come out. He couldn't move. His head felt incredibly heavy, and then everything just went black. He has this foggy memory of his eyes fluttering open. He was in a car, surrounded by men. Before he could even figure out what was happening, one of them saw he was awake, grabbed his arm, and jammed a needle into it. And just like that, he was unconscious again. When he woke up for good, he wasn't a job applicant anymore. He was the terrified star of a grotesque live show, the main attraction in what the dark web legends call a red room. He found himself tied tightly to a chair in a dark, grimy room. In front of him, there was a screen, and in the corner, a camera was pointed right at him. On the screen, he did see a video of himself, and right next to it, a live chat was just scrolling and scrolling with messages from total strangers. And then, one message cut through all the noise. It was highlighted in bright, blood red text. It said, "Leg piece time for $3,000. That was it. That was the moment the real horror began. Right after that message appeared, a man walked in holding a huge dagger. One person held him down while the other started to slowly and deliberately saw through his leg. The pain was just unimaginable. He says he was begging to die, but they kept injecting him with drugs to keep him awake to make him feel every single agonizing second. But the cruelty, it didn't end there. Another red message popped up on the screen. While he was bleeding out, in excruciating pain, they brought him a plate, and they forced him to eat his own severed flesh. For years, people have argued about whether these red rooms were real or just an urban legend. For him, that debate was over. The legend was real. After that, time just became a blur of pain. They injected him with something every day that made these painful growths appear all over his body. In one live stream, viewers paid to watch them scrape his skin with a potato peeler. In another, they tore his fingernails out, then his fingers. He had completely given up. He wasn't praying for rescue anymore, just for it all to finally end. And then, in the middle of another live stream, something happened that no one saw coming. A message appeared on the screen that changed absolutely everything. At that point, for him, hope was a foreign concept. It was gone. He was just an object, waiting for the next paid command, the next wave of torture. But then the screen flickered. And this is what appeared. It wasn't red like the torture commands. It was yellow.
Just a bizarre, cryptic string of letters and numbers. It meant nothing to him. But to his captors, oh, it meant the world. The second that yellow message appeared, the two men in the room just froze. He said he saw a look of pure animal panic on their faces. And without saying a word, they just scrambled out of the room, leaving him there. In an instant, the entire power dynamic had flipped. Just moments later, the door burst open again, but these were new people. They told him they were there to rescue him. They got him into a vehicle, and it wasn't until they took the blindfold off that he saw the uniforms. It was the police. They were taking him to a hospital. He was actually safe. So, his horrible ordeal was finally over. But his recovery? That was just beginning. And with his survival came this urgent warning that he needed the world to hear. He spent 2 entire months in the hospital. Think about that. 2 months. His injuries were so severe that some of the doctors apparently couldn't even look at him. The physical healing was a nightmare, but the mental scars, the trauma, the absolute loss of trust in people, that's a whole other battle. So why tell this story? He has one reason: to warn us. Be so careful with job offers you see online. If a situation feels wrong, just listen to your gut. Never ever agree to meet a stranger in some remote place. But maybe the most terrifying part of all this is what he believes. Even after telling the police everything, he's convinced that somewhere out there on the dark web, that website is still running. The show is still going on. He made it out. He survived to tell his story. He's one of the lucky ones. And that just leaves us with this one chilling question. For every story like his that we hear, how many others do we not? How many people went to a job interview and just never came home?